to Snart Chocolates, a show about ZK products, where we break them down with rich flavors and sweet insights. I'm Queenie, and today I'll be hosting with Omar, co-founder at Ingoyama. Hi, Omar.
Hey Queenie, happy to be here.
We're also excited to have Louis, head of product market strategy at Starkware, joining us to talk about Starknet, its current focus, new opportunities, and the challenges ahead. Hi, Louis. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Queenie. Thank you, Omer, for having me.
Would you like to kick things off with a self-introduction? Tell us what Starknet is and what your mission is at the company.
Sure. So I'm going to start by introducing myself. So I'm Louis Guthmann. I've been in crypto for over 8 years now, at Starkware for 5.5. Started Starkware as a product manager, moved on to lead the ecosystem in the dev adoption of Cairo, as well as the adoption of Starknet. And for the last 9 months, I've been in charge of strategy, which is named at Starkware Product Market Strategy, leading that effort to bring Starknet and the Starkware stack into all the possible direction that makes sense in the current market. Now, what is Starknet? Starknet is layer 2. It's a scaling solution. And Starknet has been developed by Starkware, the organic company, and now being promoted and pushed by the Starknet Foundation. So what is Starknet? Starknet is a validity rollup built originally on top of Ethereum with a stated goal to allow more application and more throughput to happen in a self-custodial way on Ethereum. We are also now looking at extending the support of the stack, not only to Ethereum, but support also Bitcoin. And my personal long-term vision is to not only support Ethereum and Bitcoin, but support arbitrary L1 in a way that anyone could take the stack and deploy it, not only on one single L1, Solana, Tron, whatever, but to be able to have a layer that unifies the entire L1 ecosystem. Think IBC, but in an heterogeneous environment. So now, what makes Starknet unique when it comes to L2s and ZK rollup? Starknet is unique in 3 ways. First of all, it has currently the most performant ZK VM for available in production and productionally used. It has it's not EVM compatible. It has its own language, which is optimized for proving, called Cairo. And finally, it has it benefits from all the current research in scaling as well as UX. So we have native abstraction, we have what we call block STM, which is invented by App 2003, and we also have something called block packing, which is the ability to compact all the data availability into much smaller representation over time. So there is, to finish on this point, Starknet as a ZK stack and the ZK rollup stack has a very big difference versus other L2 stack like Optimism or Arbitrum, which is they're not transaction-based DA. Their data availability, the data available is not transactions. It's state diffs, which allow us to compress them in a much more efficient way and make Starknet currently the cheapest L2 on Ethereum. And this cost reduction will continue to increase over time as more optimization happens, such as block packing or more throughput happening. Because that's the thing with great state diff is that the more throughput you have, and the cheaper it gets per transaction, which is not true for other stack. So this is sort of like the core differences. Super optimized VM for proving. Usage of the state of the art and not, at the expense of compatibility with legacy tech, and a very promising forward-looking stack where you can settle notably on multiple chain.
Thanks, Louis. That's super informational. Yeah, so as you mentioned, Starknet introduces a new programming language, which may seem daunting to some developers. So I'm curious, what was the thought process behind this trade-off? And how does Starknet balance innovation with the challenge of developer adoption?
So that's a very good question. Why did we decide to go on stack versus using, let's say, VM? So the short answer is a mix of two things. we didn't want to be burdened by the legacy choices were made 8 years ago when Ethereum was invented, which is basically what's going on with VM. I can name a few of those legacy choices that makes it not only very unfriendly to proving, but also unfriendly for performance. The Patricia McCurtree, which is exam Patricia McCurtree on Ethereum, the choice of KCheck instead of using SHA-2 or other simpler hash function. There is a couple of very technical reasons why we didn't want to do that. And also the belief at the time that we needed super optimized stack to allow for faster proving. Faster proving being thought to be the bottleneck. 3 years later, fast forward, the current innovation on the proving front, things that Starkware invented, also in the optimization that Ingenama is providing, such as Circle Stark and the GPU optimization there, make that trade-off less obvious today. But it's still believed that Cairo in the long term would have anywhere between 5 to 10x performance improvement versus any other Rust-based language that you can see out there. And that is also a very ergonomic and easy to use language now, which wasn't the case originally. So Cairo right now is like what almost a ZK Rust, meaning it looks like Rust, it tastes like Rust, it's just not called Rust. And so we tried to learn from all the mistakes that were made before, and the idea is that the world of tomorrow won't be built by the existing EVM builders, and the good ones will be able to learn another language. So that's where the initial point. And now, when it comes to adoption itself, there was a very interesting trend we saw with Cairo, which is the people who came to us originally and stayed to this day were among the strongest builders I've ever seen in my life. Why? Because there was a self-filtering mechanism, which is the burden of learning a new language, an unfinished language, a language with all the default it has when it starts. And those that would not threaten like an extremely talented person would see an opportunity there, but it would discourage people who come for the short term. So that was an extremely strong filtering to bring sort of what you want as the right people initially. And this is why today we still have one of the strongest fully on-chain community out there. Literally today or this week came out a new game from the Realm World. If you remember the Realms is this on-chain gaming community that is building based on NFT that were minted in 2021. You have Dopeware, you have the guys at Cartridge who did an amazing job, and people like Force Prime. Many on-chain games are coming up on Starknet, and the reason why they care so much about on-chain gaming is because on-chain gaming is one of the next frontier when it comes to gaming. They are also known as autonomous word. And the reason for people to care so much about those words and the autonomous word that they want game that can live forever, independently of the life or death of the creator. So that's a very important aspect. We also have very strong, more like hardware infrastructure ZK people like Herodotus or Giza. Herodotus focusing on storage proof and proving consensus and making interoperability across the board, across the entire ecosystem. And you have people like Giza that is looking into ZK AI, trying to be able to make algorithm trustworthy by proving them. So that's sort of like the basic of like who we brought initially. And you have also now the people who just like very know what we're doing and just wanting to find the best DeFi environment to build their stack. People like Ekubo with Moody was one of the creator of Uniswap V3 and V4. Avenue, a mentor, and Lenny, who did probably one of the best UX you can find in crypto at the moment when it comes to swapping. And upcoming soon, people like Paradex, which is already live, building a perfect change on the Starknet stack. You have Extend, you have many others building perps because Starkware has proven also originally its PMF with DYDX, Apex, and other non-custodial perpetual exchange. And now all those stacks are coming to public Starknet.
That's super interesting. I can tell how excited you are about the Starknet ecosystem right now. Yeah, so I can't agree more with you that the Starknet developer community is amazing because I've had the chance to meet many builders on Starknet. And I have to say, they seem to be some of the smartest people in the space. So actually, how big is the Starknet developer community right now? And what's your secret sauce in building such an impressive developer community?
So it's actually very like I love that question because Starknet is, if you look at the developer report at the moment, among the top maybe 10, 10, 10 maybe like okay, it's in the top 15 largest ecosystem in crypto in terms of like full-time active devs and as well as occasional devs. And for the longest time, I didn't know check the latest numbers. For the young ecosystem, less than 3 years, it was by far the fastest growing and the largest in numbers. And so how do you build that? So the initial point that going from 0 to 1 is the hardest. And the question is, how do you make people care about your stack and people care about your tech? So the short answer to this is that's what I did it for the most part, in with the help of the education at Starkware that I will move at the foundation called Henry, and all the work that Abdel from Starkware did with um, what we call the exploration team. So the you need to think about dev adoption as a funnel. So the first one is acquisition funnel. So the first one is awareness. Make the content available for people to have a look. And what for that you need what people think about 101 DevRel, which is education, bootcamp, course online, videos. And that is fundamental. But this is just the first and sort of the easiest thing to think about when you think about a new stack. You think, oh, I'm going to make the tech available, people will come. That's not the truth. The truth is once they come for the tech, you need to engage them and retain them. And so this is where what we spent a significant amount of time, which is mentoring. Tender loving care was the number one motto I use internally, which is people come for the tech, they stay for their friend. So this is you need to build a community, meaning the success of an early tech community is not how many applications they're building on their own. Is it, did they make friends, and do they go on vacation together? And you have no idea how important that is until you see it, because you can't really measure engagement. It's hard to, it's not like it's not like gaming where you can spend the time attention span spent on the application. It's like, do they I say like, do they go on vacation together? And so it was a lot of hand holding, a lot of helping, and a lot of showing care, feedback on the product, and connecting one another. So one of the perfect example of success is when Manon from the Moo came to me and like said, "I want to open a month-long hacker house in Chiang Mai," and then they also did in Argentina. And probably at the time, was maybe 35% or 50% of them were Starknet hacker developers initially. I probably now the numbers change a bit, and they spun out and they grew from there. But they went together into this as because they just it's like, oh, let's have like work from remote in a cool place among friends. So that's the second part, like retention, make them become friends. And now the question is, okay, now they're friends. What do they do? What do they have to do? So at this point, what you want them is to foster good ideas and check that until something comes out and they realize, okay, that's great. Actually, let's go for it. And so this is what Abdel did, the exploration team, which is what I like to call if you ever did some surfing, there is like the rest zone. You need an environment where people can still engage with communities, work on active things, be also sustainable, meaning they should be able to work on things, but also be able to make a bit of living, enough to buy pasta and to explain to their mom they're actually not, going astray. But so, which is what Abdel's exploration team did, which was spinning out a lot of projects with a bit of funding for each of them, have people contribute in a non like bounty way, but active way, where the remuneration, like the remuneration coming with it was not allocated to specific tasking, but like the amount of energy spent on the project, such that when they spend enough time, they get enough exposure to the ecosystem, to the tech stack, to what it can be done, they come up with good ideas to build on top, or to actually decide to join one of the ecosystem projects. I have so many examples of those. And all those projects went through amazing platform called OnlyDust, what Starknet is using. And if you are a dev listening to this, you don't know where to start in the open source, you are looking for something cool to do, you're talented, just go on onlydust.xyz, check project, gauge, talk to the people, make friends, build things, and all of that will come to you. So to summarize, awareness, retention through friendship and mentoring, having project to feed those talented people long enough for them to sort of like branch out and develop their own thing at some time, after a time. So that's how you build a good community. And now when you get this base community, like these 500, 600 people living together, working together, loving being together, it just spun out automatically because they start just engaging by their own. Like, some people will just like take the lead. Another example, like in Nigeria, where one guy just decided to open a whole meetup and community and did boot camp and stuff. And a significant number of devs from Nigeria came to us thanks to him. So this is like the way you start. Education, retention, entertaining, and let the shaker take the mix, the sauce take.
So Louis, I have a question, a tough question. So if I'm a new developer, trying to tie everything up that you said so far, maybe put it in contrast to something like Risk Zero, right? So if I'm now a dev and I want to, I have an idea or I have some application that's supposed to run using ZK or at scale or whatever. What actually should I do? I mean, what are the tools that I have? How to get started, and why should I use Starknet and not go to the I guess something like Risk Zero, which is easier to learn than Cairo?
Okay, so that's a fantastic question. First of all, Risk Zero, I mean, first of all, is a great project, same thing for SP1. And there is no reason why Starkware will not go there at some point, meaning proving Rust directly. Regardless, if you want something that works in production today, where you can know the cost easily, you don't need to sign a document, and you don't really know where, you don't need just want to deploy and not think about it. Starknet is the best place at the moment, in my opinion. Also, I'm very biased, but let's believe that. But if you, no matter what, the truth is, if you are to write an application in Rust, first of all, Rust is not an easy language. Let's be honest, Rust is not an easy language, not Python. You still need to learn it. And if you have to write your application from start in Rust, then you probably just could write in another language anyhow. So the short answer to this is Cairo is in production. Any other system, as far as I'm aware, are close to production, but the number are not very clear. The costs are not very clear to me, at least. If you know better, I would love to hear it. And the tech stack is going to improve. For instance, if you want to get access to client-side proving out of the box, Cairo will be giving you that in a couple of months. And Omer, you probably know that as a guy who's working literally on the GPU acceleration for this. Circle Starks 2 is coming up very, very soon. So the short answer is, if you're in production now, and you want to know what you're building on, that's probably the easiest path today. Tomorrow we will reassess, but if you can run Rust, you can run Cairo.
Cool. Thanks, Louis. I think I was touched by your explanation about the developer adoption strategy. I guess blockchain revolution is like a marathon, so we need friends who have the same face, and face is magic.
I couldn't agree more. Look, that was the only ecosystem that have a soul to me is are the one where you make friends. So and from what I've observed, friends comes along in two ways, and this matters, right? It comes when why does it matter to have friends, to be friendly to it? Is because in adversity, they stick together. So, for instance, let's take Solana, which has honestly one of the most amazing communities there is out there today. The reason why I was always impressed by Solana was I remember in the midst of the FTX collapse, talking to project in Solana. And those guys were hardcore believers that the tech was the right one. I remember reaching out to Tensor. I know Ilya for a long time, 2018. And I reached out to him. It's like, okay, man, like, are you happy on Solana? What's going on? It was midst of 2023, right after the blow up. Solana was trading at $8. And the guy was still, heads down, still grinding, still working hard and not wanting to move. And it paid off for him. And so when you have these kind of people who sort of like stick together in their hard time, when their good time happen, they just like cannot express how much love they have for the community around them. The tech is always a pretense, a reason to stick. It's not what makes something valuable. And so that is fundamental to me in ecosystem adoption. And creating a good stack is always about not only the tech, because the tech is one thing, but also distribution is distribution. When it comes to early tech, comes from deep belief that the tech you're looking at is the right one, and people around you are here to support that belief. There's so many examples where lesser tech won, and very often, especially in like grassroots movement such as open source, language adoption, it comes down to, do I want to be talking to this guy versus the other?
Yeah, I really enjoy like every time I join Starknet Hacker House having conversations with the builders. Yeah, I also made some good friends there. Yeah.
I'm very happy. That means that they did their job correctly.
That's
No, I can
your
confirm.
effort.
Also on my end, like probably one of the best places, most energy and good vibes I felt was in Starknet events.
Yeah, 100%.
Trying to. It's not easy always.
So Louis, you just mentioned several features like state diffs, like native AA on Starknet. So I'm curious, are there any types of applications that can only be built on Starknet?
Yes. So that's I love that question too. So the only real type of application you can build. So okay, here's a vision that I don't think was talked enough in the public, but my vision of rollups today is that tomorrow they won't be called rollups anymore. What I mean by this is I believe that at the end of the day, most of the world will not run on decentralized networks, but on centralized non-custodial environments. Like what Starkware were building initially, StarkX with DYDX, Immutable, Sorare, those kind of elements, centralized but non-custodial. And so my world of tomorrow looks like what I call provable servers, meaning they are web servers that can actually running apps in a provable way such that any money transfers is done non-custodially. So let's give an example. Let's with on-chain gaming. I want to buy this skin for this World of Warcraft game, whatever it is. I want the money that I'm putting into the platform to be self-custodial, right? So how can I do that in a way that also the transfer itself is self-custodial? But I need to have an environment that understands what the blockchain is, that understands what an asset is, and understands what the transfer is. And the only way you get that at scale, meaning with the speed of a centralized server, with the speed of a regular game, is if you run in centralized setting. And the only way you get in that setting of centralized, how do you get this trustlessness is only ZK. So now the Starknet stack will be at its best as an app chain running centralized application in a non-custodial way. Now where ZK is unique is that it also allows you to be trustless, so trustworthy in a centralized setting, right? So being able to connect multiple chain, the one like I said, Ethereum and Bitcoin, is actually unique to ZK. You cannot replicate this model in an optimistic rollup. Why? Because optimistic rollup need a single source of truth. When a ZK rollup can recreate ordering through ZK. Like you can reverse the logic. So today a ZK rollup is an L2 of Ethereum, for instance. But if you were to prove Ethereum and Bitcoin, let's say on your stack, like the consensus, the execution, whatever, you can actually incorporate the indexing of all happening on the other chain into your chain, so that whenever you're going to you want to IO, you want to exit your money from Ethereum from the Starknet to Ethereum, then the sort of like logic of who is aware of what is inverse. Meaning, if Starknet itself is aware of what's going on Ethereum, and so you have to show that nothing nefarious happen on Bitcoin before you do the transfer. So the only thing you can really do on ZK rollup that you can do on this rollup is this cross-chain execution. And I'm not counting for the cost, the price, the cost of transaction and all of that. That's analytical, because at scale, thing will move to Validium, with off-chain DA or other type of DAs. But the real thing that is unique to me is like this cross-chain execution and this cross-chain system, as well as the centralized setting. So to summarize, what makes something Starknet unique is the execute part, and the ZK part is allow you centralized environment as well as cross-chain environment.
I love it when you do these summaries of yours. Every question you end up with a good summary. That's great.
And because I go to tangents. I go to a lot of tangents. So I just want to make people to sort of get back to what I was trying to summarize. I'm illustrating my point, then going back to what I'm trying to say, so they can reconnect to the initial point I was trying to make initially.
So I think Louis mentioned something about interoperability, about a unique case that can only be built on ZK or Starknet. So it seems like ZK is not only the end game for scalability, and then now it's also for interoperability. That's super exciting.
Yeah, the short answer is it's amazing. Just means that what all the ZK team has been believing in for the longest time is finally ready. They finally get to the conclusion. So it just validates our hypothesis that ZK is the only way to get those application forward, those infrastructure forward. So the short answer is that even the first, it's competition, and we'll see which one led us to the best outcome. I believe that we have the best tech stack for this, and we have the best team to build this kind of ZK. ZK is not easy to come by, it's not easy to hire for, and it's not easy to sort of like get it done to work in production. So I'm not very worried for neither Starknet or Starkware. It just validates our hypothesis. So that's as good as it gets.
Great. That actually led to my next question. So I think the whole community has reached to the consensus that ZK is the end game. So as we can see, even like for optimistic rollups like OP and also Arbitrum, I think ZK is also like one of their top priorities. So they are now like occupying 80 to 90% of the total market share. And we've seen that OP has been working with Succinct right now, and probably Arbitrum is also going to add ZK very soon into their stack. So how do you see this competition? How would Starknet disrupt this competitive landscape?
It's a competitive landscape. I think adding ZK after the fact is much harder than people think. It requires a significant effort in the adaptation to the stack, of the infrastructure, of the whole domain expertise. And so I'm not worried. As I said, we've been building this kind of infrastructure for 6 years at this point. We kind of know what we're doing, and so I'm waiting for them to come at us on this. So it's just more competition is always good.
Yeah, maybe talk to Arbitrum to team up with them.
Maybe that's the plan. Maybe that's the idea.
Yeah, keep us updated. Then actually I have a follow-up question on this. It seems the current trend in the space is for builders to prefer building their own chains rather than standalone products on layer twos. And many of them choose optimistic rollup stack due to its ease and affordability. So I'm curious, how does this trend impact Starknet's layer three strategy?
So the short answer is I think they are using the stack that is available, and when ZK stack would be available for real, they will be using more ZK. The the trend itself to me is a bit I've it seems very the trend itself doesn't worry me or interest me. I mean, it does interest me in some capacity, but I see that the vast majority of those app chain are very unclear goal to me. And except base, which makes a lot of sense for them to do what they did, and obviously they have success, right? I have not come across many other app chain that made significant sense to me, except for Perps, Hyperliquid are now building their own infrastructure, or StarkX, DYDX, Apex, all of those guys. Those are very different. So to go back to my initial point about those prover servers, I do not believe in a world where there are going to be a million other app chain and all of them will be running on a fraud-proof system, because who's watching the watcher? And none of this will make sense to me, because there is no world where everyone is going to check whatever XYZ did. Especially if there is a bug in the stack, someone will exploit it to take the money out. And if there is not enough watchers, this stack doesn't work. This is where ZK comes along and solves it.
Okay, so it might be a long-term mission. So we don't need to rush right now.
Exactly. Yes, I don't see a reason to rush.
Okay, cool. And you just mentioned several interesting use cases on Starknet, like fully on-chain gaming. So actually, how important this segment is to Starknet ecosystem, and what other, priorities for you?
So the how important it's very interesting. It's very interesting because it can explore what can be done with the stack itself. It like goes to the limit of what's available, and that's very important. Now, in addition, it forces us to explore use cases that the rest of the industry is not looking at. All the industry is optimizing for DeFi, which is great, but our stack is supposed to be general purpose, and so if we only focus on what DeFi needs, then we won't be able to go to the next generation of project. So that's why I'm very excited about what's going on in the on-chain gaming world, because that's unique to us. And that's something where I've been seeing a lot of very cool application, like, as I say, Ethereum, Influence, many others are there and pushing the limit of what can be done.
So fully on-chain gaming shall only happen on Starknet.
Show me where I'm wrong, and I would love to be proven.
Cool. So Louis, you also mentioned that Stark is coming to Bitcoin. Are you confident there's significant demand for verifiable competition outside of Ethereum?
So much. Look, I mean, that's not even like a question. Outside just the hype, there is a lot of demand for Bitcoin L2. The reason is very simple. The only thing you can do today on Bitcoin realistically is transfer Bitcoin, and then you need to give it to people like FTX to trade it. And you never know. There is this quote in Bitcoin, which is not your key, not your coins. So the short answer is like, yes, there is a lot of demand and a lot of excitement about what's going on in Bitcoin. The question is, will the Bitcoin community get together to make it happen? Is another big question. I believe so. I hope so. I hope it will happen in a timely manner. But the demand itself is not that there.
So before we wrap up for today, I want to end with the final question we'll be asking every guest on the show. So name a project you're bullish about.
So in any area of the space.
Yes.
I mean, there is obviously, I love the Road team right now on Starknet. They are doing an amazing job because it's like more infra, so I know more about it. I understand how they do. I think they're pretty unique in the way they do things. They're doing storage proof, which sort of allow you to do arbitrary bridges as well as arbitrary oracles. So I'm very excited about it. When it comes to use cases, I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna say something controversial, but payment is the reason I came to crypto in the first place, and so I guess I would love to see Tron be sort of like more look at with more consideration from the space, not from a token perspective. I mean, the token is reflecting it pretty well, I guess. But I actually would love to see them engage with all the research and all the work being done in the space to bring more, trustlessness and better environment. So that's something I'm a bit. That's controversial, but I'm excited about what's going on there. And I think no one in the space, or at least on the Twitter's world, is looking at what they're doing.
Yeah, so payment is indeed one of the most important use cases that many players are pushing for in the space. And it's always great to learn from each other. All right, I guess that's all for this episode. Thanks, Louis, for joining us today. And if you have questions to Louis, or if you want to learn more about the work happening now on Starknet, we added a few links in the show notes. Finally, thank you, Omar, for co-hosting.
Thank you, Queenie. I had a blast.
See you next time.